أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا.
The second question is coming to me, is human rights in Islam? So the question is from Germany, that is a Muslim living in Germany. He born in, I think, in Afghanistan and established in Germany. His name is Nasruddin. So he sent me a question about human rights in Islam. So it is a long question, but I put it in brief to make people understand what is human rights in Islam. So in my reply, you will get all the answers. All the answers of his question, which he has put before me. Since Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, that is, since God is absolute and the sole master of man and the universe, He is a sovereign Lord, the sustainer and nourisher, the merciful, whose mercy enshines all beings, and since He has given each man human dignity and honor and breath into hymns of His own Spirit, it follows that united in Him and through Him, and apart from their other human attributes, men are substantially the same, and no tangible, that is, no tangible and actual distinction can be made among them on account of their accidental differences, such as nationality, color, or race. Every human being is thereby related to all others, and all become one community of brotherhood in their honorable and pleasant servitude to the most compassionate Lord of the universe. In such a heavenly atmosphere, the Islamic confession of the oneness of God is then dominant, and central and necessarily anti the concept of the oneness of humanity and the brotherhood of mankind. Although an Islamic State may be set up in any part of the earth, Islam does not seek to restrict human rights or privileges to the geographical limits of its own state. Islam has laid down some universal fundamental rights for humanity as a whole, which ought to be observed and respected under all the circumstances, whether such a person is resident within the territory of the Islamic State or outside it, whether he is at peace with a state or at war. The Quran very clearly states, O believers, be you securer of justice, witness for God. Let not detestation for a people move you not to the equitable, be equitable. That is nearer to God fearing. Chapter 5, verses 8, the Holy Quran. Human blood is sacred in any case and cannot be spilled without justification. And if anyone violates this sanctity of human blood by killing a soul without justification, the Quran equates it to the killings of entire mankind. So, the Quran Allah said, whoso slays a soul not to retaliate for a soul slain, nor for corruption done in the land, should be as if he had slain mankind altogether. It is not permissible to oppress women, children, old people, the sick, or the wounded. Women's honor and chastity are to be respected under all circumstances. The hungry person must be fed, the naked clothed, and the wounded or diseased treated medically, irrespective of whether they belong to the Islamic community or are from amongst its enemies. When we speak of human rights in Islam, we really mean that these rights have been granted by God. They have not even granted by any king or by any legislative assembly. The rights granted by the kings or the legislative assembly can also be withdrawn in the same manner in which they are conferred. The same is the case with the right accepted and recognized by the dictators. They can confer them when they pleased and withdraw them when they wish. And they can openly violate, violate them when they like. But since in Islam human rights have been conferred by God, no legislative assembly in the world or any government on the earth has a right or authority to make an amendment or change in the right conferred by God. No one has a right to abrogate them or withdraw them. Nor are they basic human rights which are conferred on paper for the sake of show and exhibitions and denied in actual life when the show is over. Nor are they like philosophical concepts which have no sanction behind them. The Charter of the Proclamations and the resolution of the United Nations cannot be compared with the right sanctioned by God, because the former is not applicable on anybody, while the latter is applicable on every believer. They are a part, a parcel of the Islamic faith. Every Muslim or administrator who claims themselves to be Muslim will have to accept, recognize, and enforce them. If they fail to enforce them and start denying the right that have been guaranteed by God, or make amendment and changes in them, or practically violate them while paying lip service to them, the verdict of the Holy Quran for such a government is clear and uh, unequivocal. Those who do not judge by what God has sent down are the disbelievers, chapter 5, verses 44. So, human rights in an Islamic state. First, the security of life and property. In the address which the Prophet delivered on the occasion of the farewell Hajj, he said, "Your lives and properties are forbidden to one another till you meet your Lord on the day of resurrection." The Prophet has also said about the demons, the non-Muslim citizens of the Muslim state, "One who kills a man under covenant, that is, dreaming, will not even smell the fragrance of paradise." Second, the protection of honor. The Holy Quran lays down. First, you who believe, do not let one set of people make fun of another set. Second, do not defame one another. Third, do not insult by using nickname. Fourth, do not backbite or speak ill of one another. Chapter 49, verses 11 to 12. Sanctity and security of private life is essential. The Holy Quran has laid down the injunctions. First, do not spy on one another. Second, do not enter any house unless you are sure of the occupant's consent. 4. The security of personal freedom. Islam has laid down the principle that no citizen can be imprisoned unless his guilt has been proved in an open court. To arrest a man only on the basis of suspicious and to throw him into a prison without proper court proceedings and without providing him a reasonable opportunity to produce his defense is not permissible in Islam. Fifth, the right to protest against tyranny. Among the right that Islam has conferred on human beings is a right to protest against government's tyranny. Referring to it, the Quran says, God does not love evil talk in public unless it is by someone who has been injured thereby. In Islam, as has been argued earlier, all power and authority belongs to God, and with man there is not only uh, delegated power which becomes a trust. Everyone who becomes a recipient or a donee of such a power has to stand in awful reverence before his people toward whom and for those sake he will be called upon to use these powers, to use these powers. This was acknowledged by Hazrat Abu Bakr, who said in his very first address, cooperate with me when I am right, but correct me when I commit error. Obey, obey me so as I follow the commandments of Allah and His Prophet, but turn away from me when I deviate. So you found the freedom of expression also in religions. Islam gives the right of freedom of thought and expression of all citizens of the Islamic State on the that is on the condition that it should be used for the propagation of virtue and truth and not for spreading evils and wickedness. Wickedness, the Islamic concept of freedom of expression is much superior to the concept prevalent in the West. Under no circumstances would Islam allow evils and wickedness to be propagated. It also does not give anybody the right to use abusive or offensive languages in the name of criticism. It was a practice of the Muslims to inquire from the Holy Prophet ﷺ whether on a certain matter a divine injunction had been revealed to him. If he said that he had received no divine injunction, the Muslims freely expressed their opinions on the matter. So when there is a freedom of association, Islam has also given people the right to freedom of association and formation of parties or organizations. This right is also subject to certain general rules. There is also freedom of conscience and conviction. Islam has laid down the injunction there should be no coercion in the matter of faith. On the contrary, totalitarian societies totally deprive the individuals of their freedoms. Indeed, this undue exaltation of the state authority curiously in a postulate a sort of servitude, of slavishness on the part of men. At one time, by slavery was meant total control of men over men. Now that time of slavery has been legally abolished, but in its place, totalitarian societies imposed a similar sort of control over individuals. Protection of religious sentiment. So, along with the freedom of conviction and freedom of conscience, Islam has given the right to the individual that his religious sentiment will be given due respect and nothing will be said or done which may encroach upon his right. There is also protection from arbitrary imprisonment. Islam also recognized the right of the individual that he will not be arrested and imprisoned for the offense of others. The Holy Quran has laid down this principle clearly. No bearer of burdens shall be made to bear the burdens of another. There are also the right to the basic necessities of life. Islam has recognized the right of the needy people that help the assistance will be provided to them, and in their wealth there is acknowledged right for the needy and the destitute. There is also equality before law. Islam gives its citizens the right to absolute and complete equality in the eyes of the law. Now also the rulers, not above the law, belonging to a high and noble family, was arrested in connection with theft, that is theft, with theft. The case was brought to the Prophet, and it was recommended that she might be spared the punishment of theft, that is theft. The Prophet replies, the nation that lived before you were destroyed by God because they punished the commandment for the offense and let their dignitaries go unpunished for their crimes. I swear by him who holds my life in his hand that even if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, had committed this crime, I would have amputated her hand. So, and then also Islam teaches the right and participate of the affairs of state, and their business is conducted through consultations among themselves. Chapter 42, verses 38. The Shura, or the legislative assembly, has no other meaning except that the executive head of the government and the members of the assembly should be elected by free and independent choice of the people. Lastly, it is to be made clearly that Islam tries to achieve the above-mentioned human rights and many others not only by providing certain legal safeguards but mainly by inviting mankind to transcend the lower level of animal life, to be able to go beyond the mere tithe forestalled by the kinship of blood, racial superiority, linguistic arrogance, and economic privilege. It invites mankind to move on to a plane of existence where, by reason of his inner excellence, man can realize the ideal of the brotherhood of men. So this is my reply. I think that you have understand my replies. Thank you very much for your attention.